Eleanor Rigby, the Beatles song. But I wanted to take it to dealing with a lyric that would make, without question, you understand exactly what we're talking about.
This version of it starts with a gong that comes in and it's backwards. That was difficult to do. That entailed turning the tape upside down, figuring out where you go in, where you're going to come out, and it takes time to do it, but it was very effective and is a result of the gong at the end of the tune. That's what gave Steve the idea that we should put one backwards at the front. The other element that's very important to this song is a Yamaha Dream Machine, a large synthesizer that was polyphonic. It allowed Steve to play many notes at a time instead of the traditional way, which was to layer one note at a time, a very tedious, long process. Now he could play big arrangements, and it changed the way we could work, and we used it a lot on this album. It was very important to the album.
So many people live in a past, whether it be in a time where they've, where for them segregation was a good thing, a great thing to do, and racism and just whatever the evils of the world were. They wanted to kind of live and celebrate those things. And then there's the other group that, spending most, their lives living in a future paradise, living in a time or living in the spirit of the day when people will be one, when all of what has been prophesied becomes the reality. And so they were looking forward to that.
The other elements in this song that are important are the percussion, and the percussion is really anchored by these Hare Krishna bells. Steve had the idea for the song that it would have a universal theme if he put in Hare Krishna bells, and he arranged to have a group of Hare Krishna devotees come and play. And they're used throughout playing these bells. And then later on they'll come in and they'll start to chant. Along with that percussion, we have cowbells, we have congas that go along with that. We have hand claps, but I think they're really stick claps.
Rhythmically, I wanted to give it a kind of Latin feel, as it had, with a little twist of the backbeat thing, kind of influenced by that whole Earth, Wind and Fire groove that was happening back then. I had done one of the recording of Pastime Paradise where I tried putting drums on it, which at that time I guess you would say like having an orchestra like with a Barry White kind of feel, where they're like...
Along with that, then we layered vocals, which is his lead vocal, and two other vocals that will double him in various parts of the song, and then a third very high vocal that gives an eerie quality to certain parts of the song. Here we have the Hare Krishnas coming in. And then it's going to be followed by the large choir, very large gospel choir. So you get the quality of the Hare Krishna chant against We Shall Overcome, which makes it a very haunting song.
Well, I'm very glad that ultimately I did not keep the drums on the song, because it worked really good with the Latin feel and with the bass and the whole thing. Just various counter rhythms.
It's Steve's view of the whole album, which is, people should be together and take care of each other. And so in the end is the gong, which is what gave him the idea to do the reverse gong at the front.
So that's what Gangsta's Paradise is. It's not a rap song. People call it a gothic rap song. They tried to come up with all these names for it. But what it really is a new Negro spiritual.
Why are we so blind to see that the one now see, wonder time is different than the standard mean time, right? Like, there's the equator, and then, after, so they figured, actually they're going to put it in the geographic books, because, see, Steve will go for, 3-4 days and then take a nap, and you basically, when you're in a studio, too, you're in an environment, you're creative, so time evolves, like, differently, right? So we all have this, we're all going to sue Steve, because we all have this dysfunction where we can't sleep anymore. Because our bodies don't know how to, like I went to the Betty Ford Center, and I went to the Schick Center for, and I said, look, I got this problem. I seem to want to stay up and record music all night long. Can you help me? And I sleep every 2 or 3 days, and, essentially what he did is he turned us all into vampires, essentially. I mean, I'm the only guy that goes to Japan and actually is on the right schedule.
Saturn.
Saturn, as we say on our planet, right? Saturn.
It was good to see you. It's pretty good. Just thinking about that whole thing with Saturn. Obviously, I wondered what inspired you to take what I had as the original concept of going back to Saginaw to write going back to Saturn. What happened with it? How did you do that?
It's like the way, it's so amazing, Steve, the way that you write, it's like the song is like already written in there. So when I heard, you just have to chip away at the rock and find because your syllables are like, you kind of channel this other language, it sort of turns into English, and I just sort of moved some of the syllables around, and the song was like basically written by the time you gave me the tape, because you were saying Saginaw. And it's the funny thing how when you're sort of driving around in a car or something, or you're not paying attention, and you listen to something on tape, you remember back in the days when we would try to get stuff off of records and we'd write all the wrong lyrics down, and we find out years later it's something else. Well, I thought you were saying Saturn.
Really?
Yeah, it sounded like Saturn for a minute, and Saturn, it basically just represents a Shangri-La, or a perfect kind of place where people are realizing their true potential as spiritual beings. I mean, because we are basically spiritual beings having a human experience.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Saturn, speaking of, the kind of stuff, I was like looking at your hair here.
Yeah, well, you kind of got me into this, but remember, I was probably the first Italian to have his hair braided back in the 70s, see, because, I remember I tried to do cornrows like you, and my head bled. My head swelled up like a big watermelon, and it bled, so I said, I have to find my own religion. So I basically started the Pastafarians, which is the Italian Rastafarians, because they wouldn't have me in the regular Pastafarians, being that I ain't from Jamaica. So you see what I did is I started, inside of each one of these here spindle lock things here is pasta, see?
Oh,
and we wrap the pasta up here, see? And then over here is our prayer beads, see? We pray over here on these things here, and see.
How do you communicate with the people from Saturn?
No, from Saturn, this one over here is Saturn here. Take this one here, and you just want to say a few words to the people from Saturn there?
Hey!
They did.
How you doing?
Don't forget, talk in our original tongue.
I'm always intrigued by his orchestral use of synthesizers. It's always interesting, and he doesn't fall into a certain trap that I've often fallen into. I very often try to duplicate acoustic sounds on the synthesizer. I try to make the strings sound like real strings. I try to make the brass sound like real brass. And Stevie lets the synthesizers be what they are, something that's not acoustic.
Now we had, between John, Gary and myself,